Hello again. Having looked at coaching inns and mail coaches, my mind wandered to one of the most romantic stories told of delivering the mail, that of the Pony Express. In 1849, the discovery of gold in Sacramento sparked a huge influx of immigrants to the area. In 1848, the population of California was less than 1,000. By the end of 1849, it was 100,000. In addition, the Mormon exodus of 1847 had brought thousands more people to Utah. In 1848, Alexander Majors, seen here on the right, started an overland hauling freight company on the Santa Fe Trail. He was awarded a contract to haul supplies to United States Army posts along this trail. So he formed Majors Overland Stage Company. This became part of a wide network that reached into the frontier west. However, mail was taking around a month to get from east to west, and a faster delivery method was required. In 1859, the idea of this method of moving the mail was developed by the three men, and the Pony Express was born. By utilising a short route and mounted riders rather than traditional stagecoaches, they proposed to establish a fast mail service between St. Joseph, Missouri and Sacramento, California, with letters being delivered in about 10 days, a duration many said was impossible. Russell bought 500 suitable horses and stationed them along the route at intervals of about 10 miles. This was the most a horse could gallop at full tilt. They then advertised for young, skinny expert riders willing to risk death daily, orphans preferred. There was no shortage of applicants, including the 14-year-old William Hickok, later known as the famous gunfighter and lawman Wild Bill Hickok. There were about 190 of these stations on the route, and each one had stables and a well. The service opened as planned from St. Joseph to Sacramento, and it began on April the 3rd, 1860. There were two types of station. A swing station, where riders would just exchange their tired mounts for fresh ones, taking only the mail pouch, which was called a mochila, from the Spanish for pouch. And then there were home stations, which provided room and board for the riders between runs. This technique allowed the mail to be whisked across the continent in record time. Each rider rode about 75 miles a day. The journey was difficult and dangerous. Apart from occasional skirmishes with Native American tribes, the riders had to cross the Sierra Nevada mountain range. This was virtually impassable in the winter. Then there was the searing heat of the Mojave Desert, where the temperature had been known to go as high as 49 degrees Celsius, although in the winter it can go as low as -4. In November 1860, the Pony Express was able to bring the news of Abraham Lincoln's election as president to the West Coast in a matter of days, instead of the months it would have taken just a short while before. However, with the onset of the Civil War and the coming of the telegraph and the railway, it was clear the company's days were numbered. On October the 26th, 1861, the Pony Express closed, just 2 days after the transcontinental telegraph arrived at Sacramento. For a venture that only lasted 18 months, it has lived on as a highly romanticised part of the folklore of the American West. One reason is because there's so much embodied in the story of the Pony Express that's part of the American spirit. Man versus nature, rugged individual exploits, danger and excitement. However, a big part of its appeal is down to this man, William F. Cody, known as Buffalo Bill. Cody had worked for Russell's company as a young man, but he was probably too young to have actually been a Pony Express rider as he claimed. He wanted to enlist as a soldier in the Union Army during the Civil War, but was refused because of his age. But in 1863, at age 17, he enlisted and served until discharged in 1865. But he returned in 1868, and from his post in Fort Larned, he performed the exceptional feat of riding as a lone dispatch courier a total of 350 miles in 58 hours, covering the last 35 miles on foot. In response, he was assigned as Chief Scout to the 5th Cavalry Regiment. In 1872, he made his stage debut with his friend Texas Jack Omohundro in a show called Scouts of the Prairie. A couple of years later, he followed that up with Buffalo Bill Combination, and he performed this for part of the year while scouting on the prairies for the rest. This troupe toured for 10 years. In 1883, he founded Buffalo Bill's Wild West, a circus-like attraction which travelled around the United States, Britain and continental Europe. The show first went to London in 1887 as part of the American exhibition, which coincided with the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria. The Prince of Wales, later Edward VII, requested a private preview. He was impressed enough to arrange a command performance for Queen Victoria, who enjoyed the show and meeting the performers. This set the stage for another command performance on June the 20th, 1887, for her guests. Royalty from all over Europe attended, including the future Kaiser Wilhelm II and the future King George V. Performers reenacted the riding of the Pony Express, Indian attacks on wagon trains, and stagecoach robberies. Many of Cody's troupe were stars in their own right, particularly Calamity Jane and Annie Oakley, the sharpshooter. At age 14, Martha Jane Cannery took charge of her 5 younger siblings. She took whatever job she could find to provide for this large family. She worked as a dishwasher, cook, waitress, dance hall girl, nurse, and ox team driver. Finally, in 1874, she found work as a scout at Fort Russell. During that time, she began her on-off employment as a prostitute. She moved on to a rougher, mostly outdoor and adventurous life on the Great Plains. She was a very far cry from the character portrayed by Doris Day, that everybody thinks about as Calamity Jane. Annie Oakley was born Phoebe Ann Mosey in 1860 to Quakers of English descent. At age 15, she won a shooting contest against an experienced marksman called Frank Butler, whom she later married. The two of them joined Buffalo Bill in 1885. Audiences were astounded to see her shooting out a cigar from her husband's lips or splitting a playing card edge-on at 30 paces, and she earned more than anyone, except Buffalo Bill himself, of course. Like Calamity Jane, Annie Oakley's life has been much romanticised, mainly by Hollywood and in the musical Annie Get Your Gun. Here she is, portrayed by Betty Hutton in a film from the 1950s.
Folks are dumb where I come from, they ain't had any learning. Still they're happy as can be, doing what comes naturally.
Doing what comes naturally.
The Pony Express never made a profit because it didn't manage to secure a government contract for delivering letters. The business lost up to $30 for every letter it carried. Still, the audacious idea was enough to capture the imagination of the country. The Pony Express built a legacy that lasts today as part of our perception of the classic Wild West, thanks in great part to Buffalo Bill. His show did much to build up the myth of the West. Please join me again to see where my mind takes me next time. Bye for now.